Next question comes from Morel. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, so I'll pronounce it many ways. My wife and I are 26 and 28 respectively. I just started a new job with what I feel is great pay, and I'm trying to start good savings and investing habits, but I'm getting aggravated because there are too many goals to hit. All right, ready?
Ready.
First goal. Need 3 to 6 months worth of income in savings for emergency fund. So a goal of $18,000. We currently have $10,000 saved. Need $10,000 for down payment on a car. $4,500 for a $45,000 car. Need 20% down payment for a house to avoid PMI. $40,000 for a $200,000 home. Continue saving to prepare for baby expenses. It seems that all my savings energy is going to amassing a minimum of $52,500 savings account just to meet the basics. How in the world will we ever be able to invest? My wife and I both contribute minimum to match amounts to our 401ks, but we are nowhere near maxing out those accounts, much less a Roth IRA or brokerage account. I feel we are decent stewards of our money, but it just seems like an impossible task to hit savings goals while investing at the same time. Any help would be amazing. Aww.
I know. That's such sympathy.
Feeling so much stress.
I know.
You're doing great.
You're doing, I mean, I'm sure you're doing great. First of all, you care about this and you're in your mid-20s, which is a great sign. And it's certainly difficult to hit all these targets when you're just starting out and you're thinking of starting a family. So here are my initial thoughts. So you said 3 to 6 months worth of income and a savings for emergency fund. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I don't think it's 3 to 6 months of income. It's about 3 months of must-pay expenses. You don't have a mortgage at this point. You don't have kids at this point. I think you can get by with a smaller emergency fund. You've already saved up $10,000. That's probably okay, especially if you feel like your job's pretty safe. Need $10,000 for put a down payment on a $45,000 car. I would say lower your car needs. I don't know what car you're looking at, but you can get a pretty good used car. Almost every car I bought is a used car.
We just bought a $16,000 new car, and it's delightful. Yes. I don't care if it's a manual transmission.
I love manual
That's our best theft deterrent, is the fact that our car is a manual transmission.
Not to mention you can pop the clutch if the battery goes down. Anyway, so I would say lower your sights in terms of what kind of car you need.
Yeah, the average new car now, and I just did this quiz with my family last night, is $36,000 is the average price. And largely because they're not making the little cars anymore very much, and they've all gone to the more profitable SUVs. So that's driven up the average cost. But $45,000 is probably for a nice SUV.
Yeah. And then 20% down payment to avoid PMI. I understand how difficult that could be, and that you're doing it for a $200,000 home. I'm jealous because we live in the Washington, D.C. area, and you could never find a home for that amount. I would say, especially with your first home, it's okay to put down less than 20%.
We did the FHA loan. Yeah. That was 4%.
Yeah. And then you can get out of PMI once you have built up 20% equity. So combination of you making your payments and hopefully the home price increase, eventually you can get out of PMI. So you generally don't have to pay it forever. Just make sure you know what the terms are before you take on that loan.
Also, you totally don't have to buy a house if you don't want to.
Well, so that's another big thing, right? We talked about that. Like, home ownership is completely overrated. It's the biggest mistake my wife and I made, that we've bought too many houses, partially because we bought the so-called starter home and didn't think down the line to how many kids we eventually would have. So if you're at a point where you just started this job, you're not sure whether you're going to like it or not, don't know how many kids you're going to have, you might want to wait on buying the house.
Yeah. And we see some house prices moderating. There's not a whole lot of inventory right now in most markets. And as more inventory comes on, it usually benefits the buyer too. So patience sometimes. And I would just say, I would echo what Bro said. I mean, you're in your mid-20s. You're doing phenomenally well. Just prioritize things. I would add one that Bro won't like, and we sit on the retirement committee here. But I remember we did it for our first house. We borrowed our 401k to make our down payment for our first house. That's not your first option, but you guys are contributing to 401ks, so that is an option. And make sure that when you do buy that house, that you want to be in that area for 7 years at least, because it's not something you want to buy and sell houses. As we know, there's commissions that go along with those, usually around 6%. So it's expensive. It's much more expensive to buy and sell houses than it is stocks or anything else. So make sure that when you do buy, you kind of make that commitment. The other thing I would say,
the schools and that.
Right. Yes.
That's a big deal in our area.
Commute. Yeah. Go visit that house and do the early morning commute and do the commute back at nighttime as well. And one thing for those of you, since we got on houses, but it's not a house.
Oh, show. I'm all houses all the time.
You're all houses.
We're closing this Friday.
Alison is closing, but look for comparable rentals to your house. And generally you want to pay around 200 times a comparable monthly rent. It'll fluctuate, but around there is pretty good. In the peak kind of bubble times of 2005, 2006, 2007, around here, people were paying up to 400 times monthly rents. And those people generally saw the value of their house decline by 30 or 40%. Then you're underwater, and that's a bad situation to be in. So that's a good little kind of tip when you start to value what you should pay for a house. Okay.
And since this episode comes out right before Halloween, if you're going to have kids, great time to drive around and see which neighborhood has the most kids walking around, who's decorating the most for Halloween to get that vibe.
That's true.
And the final thing I'll say is, if you can manage to save more money, the first place I put it is the Roth IRA, because that money grows tax-free. But as we've pointed out previously, the money you put into a Roth IRA, you can take out tax and penalty-free if you need it. And I wrote an article back when my kids were very young about us using a Roth IRA as an emergency fund. We put it in there. Hopefully we don't need to touch it, but if we did need to get it, we could. We didn't need to, but we did look at that as our emergency fund, and it worked out pretty well.
So they could put that $10,000 that they currently have saved, shuffle it over to the Roth then.
Yeah, the contributions you can take out tax-free.
Right, not the earnings. Gains. Right. And the limit per person is $5,500 for folks their age, although hopefully it's going to go up in 2019.
All right. Bottom line is you're doing great.
You're doing
Keep
great.
It up.
Yeah.
And you are investing.
Yeah.
You're just investing in a lot of stuff.
That's right.